Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Darkwing Duck. In the last part, we went through the first 3 stages, and now we're heading on to the 4th one. Well, my 4th one. Moly Oldies developing a monstrous new machine in the tower. Do you want to go there? Well, I gotta go to them all eventually, so yeah. This might be my favorite stage aesthetic. I don't know why, I've always just liked construction site ones. It's also around now that I start to remember, oh right, I can use the cape as a defensive measure. Good to know. Something I notice a lot in the second half of the game especially is that they love putting the first special stage, bonus stage, really early on into it for some reason. And I'm not complaining, I like it when they do that, but it's something I just notice. Now, the second half of the game overall, I think the stages are actually a little bit shorter on the whole. Mind you, that could also just be because I'm actually paying more attention and I'm more used to the mechanics again, but it is something that I think I've noticed over time. Mind you, the entire game is still really short. It's not that much longer than Mega Man 1 or DuckTales 1. Most long plays of this are probably around 50 minutes. In fact, what's the speedrun look like? Because I imagine it's not that long. Leaderboard. 11 minutes, yeah, that feels right. Low percent, no sub-weapon. 13 minutes, it's not that much of a difference. I'm assuming that 2 minutes difference is probably made by the arrow gas. I will say this stage has some of the hardiest enemies in the game. Like, these robot dogs take 5 shots, and the turtles also come back in this stage, and they take 6 shots. A lot of higher HP enemies. In, like, the first stage I went to, they have usually maybe 2 or 3 HP, but in this stage in particular, they can be kind of healthy. Now, something notable is that this game doesn't have too much in the way of cut content compared to some other games, especially like PlayStation era. The most there is like half a song that's not used and an unused graphic, probably for placeholding's sake, that's also in Mega Man 3 for some reason. But there was a prototype version of this game found, and it doesn't really change too much. A lot of the stuff's just graphics, like some minor cutscene graphics were changed around. The Thunderquack shows a bit more often. As well, the perspective on the roads at the end of every stage was changed. But there were some minor differences, like gas pickups don't carry between stages. Select gives a full-out pause, like Mega Man 1's did. There's some debugging feature, and I think there's minor glitches as well. I always love when prototypes like that get found, because sometimes it leads to great game history being discovered. For instance, like that prototype cartridge for Earthbound Beginnings. That being found was saving grace for the fanbase. And one that I think is still continuing to elude people to this day is the, I think it's White City Mega Man X prototype, where the highway stage looked different. If that ever gets found, I'm especially going to look into that because, Mega Man. You know, it's surprising though. Given this game's status as more or less a Mega Man game that's not Mega Man, you'd think I not only would have played this game more often, but also would have gotten to it sooner, but honestly, maybe it's just because it's the Disney theming and not Mega Man, I just don't find myself going back to this game as often as a lot of other Mega Man-like games on the system. Though overall, the game I probably go back to the most on the NES is probably either Mega Man 6 or, probably Castlevania 1. If I'm going back to Castlevania 3, I'm playing the Famicom version, so not as much credit there. Now, this final section of the stage is kind of annoying in that I just don't want to spend time fighting all the turtles. So I end up skipping over them, and rushing like this can be deadly. Thankfully, the enemies decide to be kind every now and then and drop some health items, and there is a health pack here and extra life for me to grab. But this is a very, very, very dangerous strategy. I do not recommend doing this if you're new to the game. We are near the end of the stage, though, and there's going to be, as usual, a little health pack right before the boss, and you're going to want to get this one. Because Moliarty is quite the dangerous boss fight. Why? Well, we don't exactly fight him alone. Around the arena are 3 little flamethrowers with glowing lights that are firing fire at you constantly. You need to destroy those lights in order to have them be broken. However, the moment one is broken, Moliarty goes over to repair it. There's one broken at the start, and whenever he's repairing is the best time to hit him. I did that fight pretty well, all things considered, but it's very easy to get overwhelmed in that particular fight just due to the amount of things targeting you at once. As well, when you're on the same level as him, when there's not one broken, he outright charges at you, and that can be kind of hard to attack while also dodging. For that, though, let's head on over to the next stage. Megavolt and his henchmen are robbing the warehouses along the wharf. You better move quickly before all the goods are gone. Do you want to go there? Well, have to go there eventually, don't I? You know, speaking, I don't know why Lunchpad in particular speaking reminded me of this, but something I wonder if they're going to do when it comes to Disney cartoons currently. Obviously, they got the new DuckTales series going on, which if you haven't watched yet, please check it out. It is really good. And there was one point where they outright referenced a couple of the old Disney afternoon shows, like they made a reference to of Gummy Bears and such. But the most glaring of them was a Darkwing Duck reference where the triplets and Webby were listening and basically beatboxing to the Darkwing Duck ending theme while in Launchpad's plane. I wonder if they're ever going to try and bring back some of the other old Disney afternoon shows. That'd be cool to see some of them come back, particularly Darkwing Duck, or... As much as I'd like to say Gargoyles would be nice to make a comeback, I think that show's tone was something that could only exist in the era with Batman the Animated Series and such. Nowadays, if they tried to make that, it would be easily marketed towards an older market and probably made more as a web series. Even then, with the overall... No, I shouldn't say that cartoons are overall lighter-hearted than they used to be, because they've always been pretty lighthearted, but there's always been those ones that went the extra mile, and those still exist to this day. It'd probably more so be like, I know they just announced the name of that, the Disney online streaming service, like Disney Plus or something. I'm probably not going to get it. I could see potentially something going on, something like that. Either way, for some reason, there's flying squirrels, genies, and people on magic carpets in the warehouse. Don't exactly get why, but okay. The Genies in particular are a very annoying enemy type, because you can only damage them from the lamp. It's a bit like, I think Mist Man in Battle Network 3 Blue was like that. No, Battle Network 3 White. I forget which version he was in. Either way, I think he was like that. He was the more annoying one of the two between him and Bullman. And the annoying thing about that is it takes more than one shot unless you're using a fully generated arrow gas. So damaging them requires ducking at just the right point and mashing the button as quickly as you can so you can take it out, and they can be a very annoying enemy to take out because of that. Now, one thing I've never entirely done and wonder exactly how hard it is playing the game without bonus levels. Because, yeah, I obviously didn't know where every bonus level was in my first playthrough, but I still found a good amount of them on the way, so I'm wondering just how much easier these can make the game. Because obviously, having that amount of gas available to you at any point in time, as well as the points that you get for extra lives, can make the game overall easier, so I have to wonder... I should just do a challenge run at some point on myself to see how much harder it makes the game. Also, I'm actually very glad of one thing with this game that 04 would later continue. The moment you're hung onto something, nothing will make you let go unless you get hit or jump off yourself. And I'm very grateful when games do that, because games where you have to hold the button while doing other things with actions like hanging on things, hanging on objects rather, can be annoying. Oh, this doesn't look good. Ah, crap. It is still easy to die in Darkwing Duck. The universal 4 health points makes the game overall kind of tense at times. Even though I think that's... Yeah, no, I think that's actually the least HP that we've gotten out of all the Disney Afternoon games I've played thus far. Because DuckTales 1 and 2, you can raise your HP. DuckTales Remastered, you can raise your HP. I think the max HP was higher than that in Chip and Dale. I honestly forget right now for some reason. So, I guess this can be the hardest Disney Afternoon game just because of that. Either way, Megavolt, who's probably the villain I think of the most when I'm not thinking of Negaduck or Steelbeak, is one of the more dangerous bosses. He only has one pattern, that's to move left and right across the screen, bouncing off walls, firing varying types of projectiles after he jumps up to the second platform. He usually will either aim them directly at you, towards the side, or he'll fire it in the air, in which case it'll fall on top of you. In fact, I think I just mentioned that same projectile twice. It doesn't stick around on the middle platforms too much in my experience, but it's easy to spam the arrow right into his face. Something that I've done, but I'm very inconsistent with, is... Obviously, when he's jumping up to the third level, like the top platform, you can hit him once in the middle, but I think it's possible just by jumping off of the hanging object to hit him from the top as well. Something strange is going on in the woods. It may be the work of Bushroot. Go check it out, Darkwing. You want to go there? Why didn't you call me DW, man? That's what you call me. Either way, the Woods is potentially the shortest stage of the game, but that's not to say it doesn't still have its platforming issues. As well, it also has this enemy, which is really effective at aiming at you. Wherever it is, when it's, I think, done 2 or 3 streaks, or maybe it's when you're within a certain proximity, it will aim directly at you where you are, and it will hit you, more than likely. Thankfully, as long as you're, like, say, on the ground, then you jump, or you're jumping, then you're not. Dodging it isn't too bad, but it is one of the more accurate enemies in the game. These dogs and, these bulldogs and doghouses, though, aren't much of a threat. Same with the owls. Though this stage also has one of the weirder placed, what's it called? Bonus stages. Because a lot of the other bonus stages are on platforms that you don't need to go on unless you're going for them. But that, you need to land on that lantern, which makes this one just stand out a bit more in my mind because it's one that's on a required platform. Also, I love the bonus theme in this game. Mind you, this entire game soundtrack, I haven't really brought it up, is really good. Fits with the Darkwing Duck, nah, not aesthetic, but universe and mood. But also is suitably Capcom in a way, especially for the time where they were very hyper energy with their music. They've kind of toned down with that over the years, but the music's still good. Mega Man 11 soundtrack was great. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do for the soundtrack in the Onimusha remaster. Mostly because, if I recall, the original game was one of the games composed by that guy who was faking being deaf and had a ghostwriter the entire time. And, that's a mess. Though I'm also curious as to what they're going to do for the Resident Evil 2 remake soundtrack, because Resident Evil 2's soundtrack is really good. So I hope they keep the melodies intact, kind of like they did somewhat in the Resident Evil 1 remake. I know there's going to be an original soundtrack DLC, and I'm kind of tempted to get the 1 version just because of that, because I love Resident Evil 2 soundtrack so much. But I guess I'll find out what I do when I get there. I do like that they place a good amount of sub-weapons throughout the stage in case you want to alter it up, but honestly, the arrow gas is just the best one. Also, for some reason, the jump to get that particular life pack is very precise. Also, we need to pull a bit of a DuckTales here, because we need to go behind this waterfall, not only to get this extra life and some points, but this is also where the second special stage is. This is one of the few you outright have to go out of your way to find. A lot of the other ones, as I mentioned, are along your path, but this one you need to go into this little secret area. It's also one of the instances, again, where the bonus stages are in the unusual order of sewer area first, then rooftop area. Bit odd, but okay. One thing I can't tell in terms of Darkwing Duck's control, though, is his shots. I want to say they almost just reused Mega Man code for it, because the speed at which they travel feels very Mega Man. Because usually, when it comes to bonus stages like this, it takes me time to get used to how fast the shots travel. But with this, it's not much of an issue for me, which makes me think they may have just reused some Mega Man code for this, which wouldn't be surprising. Because if I recall correctly, DuckTales 1 used Mega Man 1's engine. So having reused code between projects would not surprise me with this era of Capcom. Mind you, I think a lot of game studios do that, where they just reuse some slide code stuff for games in a similar engine. You know what I mean? Either way, Bushroot's kind of an annoying boss, kind of like Quacker Jack. He's constantly bouncing around, generally likes to stick either to the middle or the top layers. Whenever he goes to the top layer, though, he's actually attacking by having a hand branch out of one of the trees and throwing a few little pellets at you. I think you can avoid almost every single shot, though, just by standing in the opposite corner. Or no, the same corner. Basically, if the shots on the left go to the left, and the shots on the right go to the right. He doesn't have any other attacks beyond that. In fact, if you just stay hanging, he's probably not going to touch you that much. And with that, that's the second volley of stages completed. And there's only one stage left to go. So let's head on after Endgame, shall we? We finally located the hideout of Steelbeak. He's on F.O.W.L's floating fortress. Let's get dangerous. I think the prototype accidentally had that text over by Launchpad. Mind you, it's weird, because that's the only time Darkwing even speaks in the stage select, which makes me think they may have planned for some more dialogue stuff, or they just put him there so they could have that one line. This stage is dangerous, outright the hardest stage in the game, just due to its length and some other deadliness going on in it. However, It also has every enemy in the game partnered with its own set of uniquely difficult ones. Although the ones firing a cannonball out of those things, whatever they are, they almost look like dogs. But they can still be blocked by the cape. The cape is really broken. It kind of makes me wonder if this is why they never gave Mega Man Proto Man Shield outside of the rare bonus collectible. Mind you, even then, the Proto Shield in 7 wasn't that useful, given the fact it was only active in certain situations. Also, this is where I get to go over a pretty specific thing with the game's coding. Mostly happens with the arrow gas, just due to how it works, but in the case you deselect a sub-weapon while it's being fired, it will very often just fall down and damage things still. I think this actually is a property exclusive to the arrow gas, and if you can time it right, it can be pretty potent as a weapon on its own due to this. But we want to do that because that's where the first bonus stage is. Even the final level has bonus stages, and you know what? I appreciate that. Bonus stages like this I kind of miss in games to an extent. Mind you, games just aren't as arcadey as they used to be because of varying evolutions within the field. Because these used to be very useful for getting ammo and extra lives, whereas nowadays, ammo and extra lives when needed are usually pretty accessible. In the case of survival horror games, they do space it out well, but they still make sure there's definitely some for you somewhere. Bonus stages like this have really fallen out of use on the whole, because the genre evolved past that kind of design decision. These enemies, this enemy only appears twice in this room, and it's very annoying because you can only damage from the back. It's actually very similar to the shielding enemy that moves back and forth in stages in a lot of Mega Man games, in the classic series at least. Seeing these Mouse Knights, though, makes me wonder if they only intended them to show up in this stage, and then they just realized that they might as well have one in the forest stage, because only one shows up in that final screen there. This stage, though, does bring its best in terms of the enemy variety and placement, because they will definitely make your day worse. And the platforming is... Actually, no, the platforming is still pretty on the simple side. On the whole, this game's easier when it comes to platforming than it is to action. And it's time for the final bonus stage. That is one I used to think you could actually miss if you weren't quick enough on the draw, because it's so high up on that screen you think you might not be able to reach it with your gun. However, I think you don't need to hit the center of the bonus stage entrance with the pellet. I think you just need to hit anywhere on where the sprite would be to reveal it. And you know what? I'm thankful for that. At this point, you might honestly want to see more health restoration items than anything else, because if you've played the game like I do, you probably have a good amount of gas around. And you'll get enough from the enemies anyway. Hi there, Arnold Schwarzenegger duck. And no, that's not just me making a comparison. It's a Terminator. It actually is the most dangerous enemy in the game, because it has 3 forms. The Arnold Schwarzenegger form, where it's firing on a volley of 2 pellets at a time. The first Terminator form, where it moves forward very slowly, but is still very much immutable because it won't get knocked back or slowed down by shots. And then if it takes enough damage on that form, it'll go into a jumping, almost rabbit-like form. I think it's supposed to be a reference to the ending of the first Terminator, where the torso of the Terminator was crawling around underneath the hydraulic press. And it's very hard to dodge in that form, but thankfully it'll also very often jump into pits. This thing's AI is very abusable because it'll walk right off ledges too. This is probably the most dangerous platforming section in the game, just due to the amount of pit beneath you. It's also one of the few places where they outright put enemies during the platforming sections like that. Keep your eyes out, and you should overall be pretty good. In fact, we're right near the end of the stage. And I said this is the hardest stage in the game, and I do mean that. But on the whole, most of that difficulty comes from the enemies within it and the boss fights. Steelbeak is going to be a thing. This section also just kind of feels superfluous to me because they put the health back quite a bit farther back than they usually do. And I get that it's the final level, so it should be more dangerous in that regard, but I wouldn't have minded if they put, like, just a single health recovery item in there. And that's what I mean about the super arrow being able to do more damage when it's frozen. Steelbeak is annoying, less so due to himself, but due to these little egg robots he summons. If you're not quick on the draw, they will follow you ceaselessly, and the moment you destroy one, another one spawns. They can damage you very quickly. You have very few invincibility frames when you get hit, and that is really annoying. I took that out pretty easily, I'll consider though, thankfully. And phase 2, Steelbeak, he just walks back and forth, occasionally throwing, I think, what's supposed to be a mirror. You need to jump over that, and overall, you're done. In fact, that's Endgame. Also notable, the song I mentioned earlier that has half of itself cut out is the ending theme. You've foiled my plans this time, Darkwing, but the next time we meet, I shall be victorious. Job well done, Darkwing. Once again, you've freed the city from F.O.W.L's grip of terror. You have earned the gratitude of the entire city. Forever! Oh, Darkwing, you silly little duck, you. Either way, that's Darkwing Duck. It's a joyous little adventure, very Mega Man-like, very... It's one of the harder Disney Afternoon games, but they're still overall very easy games. I'd say give it a shot if you like platformers. If you want to play it, it's on the NES. There's a Game Boy version, but I recommend avoiding that one, actually. And I think it's available not only on a lot of the virtual consoles, but also through the Disney Afternoon Collection, a lot of modern consoles and PC, where they put a lot of these old NES games together into one minor collection. There's not much to it, but it's short, it's sweet, it's nice. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, have a great night, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next Let's Play, whatever that might be. See you guys then.